The garage door rolled up with its usual mechanical groan, and there she was. Sandra Withers, HOA president of Sycamore Glenn, ducking under the half-open door like she was sneaking into a restricted area. She had this floral visor pulled low over her eyes, the kind that screams I power walk at 5 a.m. and judge you for sleeping in. She stepped over my rake without even hesitating, her white tennis shoes making soft squeaking sounds on the concrete. Then she started taking pictures of my lawnmower. My lawnmower. She circled it like a detective at a crime scene, snapping photos from multiple angles. She even crouched down to photograph the grass clippings underneath it, like it was evidence of some crime. She had no idea about the camera I'd installed in the rafters 3 weeks earlier, tucked right between an old camping lantern and a box of Christmas lights. And she definitely didn't hear herself mutter something about seeing what I was hiding, Mr. Quiet. The way she said it, with this smug little tone, made my blood pressure spike when I watched it back later. The red recording light blinked silently above her head, capturing everything in perfect detail. I watched the footage later that day, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold. I must have replayed it 5 times, just to make sure I wasn't imagining things. Then I saved it with a simple file name. Exhibit A. Let me back up and explain how we got here. My name is Derek Lang. I'm a systems analyst, which means I spend my days solving problems with logic and documentation. I grind my own coffee beans every morning because I like the ritual of it, the control over one small thing before the chaos of the workday begins. My personal philosophy is simple. Mind your own business. Do your job. Be a good neighbor by being a quiet neighbor. I bought my house in Sycamore Glen because the HOA brochure promised peaceful living and a pool that supposedly sparkled like community spirit. Whatever that means. The house itself was perfect. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a garage with enough space for actual projects. I kept to myself. Early morning jogs around the neighborhood before most people woke up. Quiet jazz on the weekends, the kind that doesn't travel through walls. Some light tinkering in my garage, mostly organizing tools and fixing small things that broke around the house. Nothing crazy. Just a regular guy trying to live a regular life. Then I met Sandra Withers. Our first encounter was at a neighborhood barbecue about 2 months after I moved in. She cornered me by the potato salad and asked 17 questions about my employment status, my work schedule, and whether I had any plans to rent out rooms. When I politely told her I valued my privacy, her smile got tighter. She's the kind of person whose Fitbit probably logs enforcement as cardio. She genuinely believes that property values are a fragile ecosystem and that she's the apex predator protecting it from chaos. Her entire identity is wrapped up in that HOA president title. Take that away and I honestly don't know what's left. Our first official interaction was memorable. She cited me for unapproved shelving visible from the street. The problem? It was a shadow. An actual shadow cast by my neighbor's tree at a specific time in the late afternoon. When I pointed this out, with photographic evidence showing the tree and the angle of the sun, she just smiled and said she'd make a note in my file. That's when I knew I was dealing with someone special. The citations started coming like clockwork after that. Garage visibility violation. Unauthorized storage of hose. My personal favorite was suspicious tool congregation. I'm not making that up. She actually wrote suspicious tool congregation on an official HOA form, printed on letterhead, delivered to my mailbox in a plastic sleeve to protect it from the weather. Sandra started patrolling at dawn, which I only knew because my Ring doorbell kept catching her peering through the slats of my fence. She'd touch my garage door handle, presumably to test compliance with some rule she'd invented. Sometimes she'd stand there for 30 seconds, just looking, like she was memorizing the scene. I started getting complaints from other neighbors too. Apparently Sandra had asked them if they'd seen unusual activity at my house. If they'd noticed strange cars. If they'd heard power tools at odd hours. She was building a case, except there was no case to build. Then she took it online. She posted in the neighborhood app about a male homeowner allegedly running a repair business from his garage, probably cash-based, definitely illegal. She used phrases like zoning violations and decreased property values and think of the children. The male homeowner was me. The repair business was a sawhorse and a podcast about woodworking that I listened to while organizing tools. The post got 43 comments before the app moderator took it down. But the damage was done. People I'd never met had opinions about my garage. I sent a polite email to the HOA board with photos proving there was no business, just hobbies. Just a regular guy with a toolbox and too much time on weekends. Sandra responded within an hour. She demanded an inspection. Her exact words were grant access to confirm zoning compliance. I replied with one word. No. Her response was 12 paragraphs long, included a statute she'd clearly misunderstood about commercial activity, and ended with 3 emojis. A stop sign, a house, and a downward trending chart. I printed that email and put it in a folder. I should have known then that things were about to get weird. It happened on a Tuesday at 11:14 in the morning. I was at work, sitting in a meeting about database optimization, when my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the garage camera. I pulled up the live feed and felt my stomach drop. Sandra was punching numbers into my garage keypad like she owned the place. 4 digits. Beep. Green light. The door started rolling up. She looked around quickly, checking to see if anyone was watching from the street, then she walked right in. I sat there in that conference room, watching this happen in real time, completely frozen. I learned later that she'd gotten the code months earlier from a contractor sign-up form that I'd filled out for a gutter cleaning service. She'd photocopied it for records. She'd been sitting on that code, waiting for the right moment. She wandered around my garage like she was shopping at a yard sale. She opened a storage bin and rifled through winter gear. She picked up a cordless drill, examined it, put it down. She ran her finger along a shelf like she was checking for dust. Then she spotted the spare mailbox key on a magnetic tray and pocketed it. She actually took my key. Just slipped it into her jacket pocket like it belonged to her. But she wasn't done. She started narrating to herself like she was recording a documentary. "He's going to learn what non-compliance looks like," she said in this satisfied tone that made me want to throw my phone across the room. Then she reached up and yanked the utility cutoff switch. The power to my garage died instantly. The lights went out. The camera kept recording on battery backup, catching everything. So did my chest freezer. 2 weeks of meal prep, gone. Chicken, vegetables, batch-cooked rice, everything. At that point, this wasn't an HOA matter anymore. This was unlawful entry, tampering with utilities, theft, and destruction of property. And it was all captured in 1080p high definition with crystal clear audio. I left that meeting. Didn't even make an excuse. Just stood up and walked out. I didn't panic. I didn't post angry messages online. I didn't confront Sandra in her driveway. I did the calmest thing I could think of. I took a personal day, went home, downloaded the footage onto a thumb drive, and labeled it Garage Opera. Then I drove to the police station. The officer who took my statement looked skeptical at first. HOA disputes aren't usually criminal matters. But then he watched the video. I saw his expression change when Sandra pocketed my key. He rewound it when she pulled the breaker and said that line about non-compliance. He paused the video, took notes, and called over a detective. The detective watched it twice. Then he called the city attorney. By the end of the day, they told me they'd be following up. 3 days later, officers showed up at Sandra's house with a warrant. They recovered my spare keys from what she called her evidence tote. They also found a binder. Inside that binder were gate codes and garage keypad numbers for at least 15 homes in the neighborhood. She'd labeled it Emergency Access Information. The HOA board's group chat apparently exploded. Their insurance company sent an email that made everyone sweat. It mentioned potential coverage denial due to intentional criminal acts by an officer. Sandra was in serious trouble. The court date arrived faster than I expected. The judge looked like someone who'd seen way too many HOA cases and had zero patience for another one. His nameplate read Judge Morrison, and he had the expression of a man who'd rather be literally anywhere else. The prosecutor played Exhibit A on a screen for everyone to see. The courtroom went completely silent. Sandra in her floral visor, ducking into my garage, taking photos of my lawnmower, pocketing my key, killing my power, and delivering that perfect line about teaching me a lesson. You could hear people shifting in their seats. Someone in the gallery whispered, "Oh my God." Then the prosecutor played exhibits B through F. Turns out 5 other homeowners had footage of Sandra testing their doorknobs, peering into windows, trying gate codes, and in one case, attempting to climb a fence to check someone's backyard shed. She'd been doing this for months. One video showed her using a flashlight to look through a ground-level basement window at 9 p.m. The judge's expression got darker with each clip. The charges were read aloud. Criminal trespass. Theft by taking. Criminal damage to property. Unlawful use of security codes. Sandra's lawyer tried to argue community caretaking. He said she was just trying to protect property values and ensure compliance with community standards. He called her a dedicated volunteer who'd given hundreds of hours to the neighborhood. The judge cut him off mid-sentence. Caretaking does not include rifling through someone's personal belongings, he said with this tired tone that suggested he'd heard enough. Volunteers don't steal keys. Concerned neighbors don't cut people's power. The verdict came quickly. Guilty on trespass and theft. The judge paused before sentencing, looking directly at Sandra. He said that positions of trust in communities require respect for boundaries, not surveillance and invasion. The sentence was even better. 60 days in jail, suspended. 2 years probation. 250 hours of community service. $3,200 in restitution for my ruined food and the cost of rekeying my locks. She also had to take a mandatory privacy law class. Then came my favorite part. A no-contact order. Sandra was forbidden from coming within 100 feet of me or my property, with the boundaries measured to the inch. And the final blow. She was barred from holding any HOA office for 5 years. Sandra's face went completely white. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. Her hands gripped the table in front of her so hard her knuckles went white. Her lawyer touched her arm and whispered something, but she didn't seem to hear him. She just stared at the judge like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. 5 years. No power. No authority. No enforcement. No neighborhood patrols at dawn. No citations. No violation reports. For Sandra Withers, that wasn't just a sentence. It was the end of her entire identity.